Hey guys, we made it to Friday. We got Tim Anderson, the source, in the house, in studio. We got some JMO too, to talk some markets. Tim, we had retail sales came in a little lower than expected, right? A lot lower than expected.
Yes.
We had earnings from banks come in better than expected for the most part. What really caught your eye?
Well, to start the third quarter earnings season on a positive note, after everybody kind of has been set up for a negative earnings season, the market is reacting positively to that. As we've seen a trend over the last year, maybe even the last 6 or 8 years, companies have tapped their earnings estimates down as low as they possibly can and then beat the consensus, and that is created a scenario where we've had a pretty good start 3 or 4 days into earnings season, which will get into really full force next week. Particularly, well, there'll be a lot of emphasis on it given the macro calendar is pretty light.
Okay, but Tim, if you're saying they tapped down their earnings, isn't that kind of fake?
Well, they do get accused of sandbagging from time to time, but the other thing that's also important for this earnings season is that these last 3 quarters were set up to be tough earnings comparisons because the prior year had big earnings bumps of 20% or more, a lot of it due to the lower tax bill.
All right, that makes sense. Now, Brexit. We got some news this week.
Yes.
I think that we're going to hear a lot more about it next week.
Well, it's not a done deal yet, but there is a agreement in principle between the UK and the EU, and the hurdle is still going to be to get the UK Parliament to approve it without getting into the weeds too much. The situation with Northern Ireland and the UK is potentially still a stumbling block at going into the weekend, but the UK Parliament is scheduled to vote on it on Saturday. It will be only the 4th time since 1939 that the Parliament has sat on a Saturday. And I just think that Boris Johnson, with his personality, maybe has a better job of selling this as a deal that should get done than Theresa May did.
Yeah, and if it does get done, talk about some deals. We're going to have some major trade deals probably in the works with that. What kind of effects are we
Well,
going to
look, I think that if it were to pass, it would set the table very well for the US and the UK to do a monstrous trade deal. Clearly, with the UK being in the EU, the US has been precluded from doing a trade deal specifically with them. And it just feels like Boris Johnson and Trump are almost like a match made in heaven, and they will probably put together a huge trade deal with all sorts of fanfare and wild press conferences and stuff like that.